Chapter 12. Soy back. For a long time it must have been insensible upon the machine. The blinking succession of the days and nights wash some physical got golden against the sky blue. I breathed with greater freedom. The fluctuating contours of the land ebbed and flowed. The hands spun backward upon the deals. At last I awaited in the dim shadows of houses the evidences of decadent humanity. These, too, changed and passed, and others came. Presently, when the million dial was at 0 /nuts. I began to recognize your own petty and familiar architecture. The thousands hand ran back to the starting point. The night and day flapped slower and slower. Then the old walls of the laboratory ruined me. Very gently, now, I slowed the mechanism down. I saw one little thing that seemed odd to me. I think I have told you that when I set out, before my velocity became very high, Mrs. watches that walked across the room, traveling as it seemed like her rocket. The sire turned. I passed again across Avenue and Traverse said the laboratory. But nowhere every motion appeared to be the exact inversion of her previous ones. The door at the lower end opened and Shedwood quietly up the laboratory back foremost, and disappeared behind the door by which she had previously entered. Just before that I seemed to see Hillier for a moment, but he passed like a flash. Then I stopped the machine, and saw about me again the old familiar laboratory, my tools, my appliances just as I had left them. I got nothing very shaky and sat down upon my bench. For several minutes I trembled violently. Then I became calmer. Around me was my old workshop again, exactly as it had been. I might have slept there, and the whole thing have been a dream. And yet, not exactly. The thing had started from the southeast corner of the laboratory. It had come to rest again in the northwest, against the wall where you saw it. That gave us out the exact distance from the little Lontov pedestal of the White Sphinx, into which the Morlocks had carried my machine. For a time my brain went stagnant. Presently I got up and came through the passage here, limping, because my feel was still painful and feeling sorely burned. Eyes on Paul Malkozet on the table by the door. I found the date was indeed to date, and looking at the timepiece, saw the hour was almost 8 o'clock. I heard your voices and the clatter of plates. I sitted. I felt so shaken we up. Then I sniffed good wholesome meat, and opened the door on you. You know the rest. I watched, and dined, and now I am telling you the story. I know, he said, after a pause, that all this will be absolutely incredible to you. To me the one incredible thing is that I am here tonight in this old familiar room looking into your friendly faces and telling you these strange adventures. He looked at the medical man. No. Iconotech to be takia tazali aure profeki. Say it in the workshop. Consider it has been speculated upon the destinies of our race until I have hatched this fiction. Treat my assertion of its truth as a mere stroke of art to enhance its interest. And taking it as a story, what do you think of it? He took up his pipe, and began, in his old accustomed manner, to tap with it nervously upon the bars of the grate. There was a momentary stillness. Then chairs began to creak and shoes to scrape upon the carpet. I took my eyes off the time traveler's face, and looked round at his body. They were in the dark and little spot saw every color swamp before him. The medical man seemed absorbed in the contemplation of our host. The editor was looking hard at the end of his cigar. The sixth. The journalist fumbled for his watch. The others, as far as I remember, were motionless. The editor stood with a sigh. With happy I see no to write raw stories! He said hutish and in the time travelers. Sure. You don't believe it? Well, he thought not. The time traveler turned to us. Where are the match? Yes? He said. Helenian spoke over his pipe puffing. To tell you out the truth I hardly believe your myself. And I fell with a routine choir you palm you with the red white flowers upon the little table. Then he turned over the hand-hold his pipe and saw was looking up some half-healed scars in his knuckles. The medical man rose, camera to the lamp, and examined the floater. The gymnasium song he said. The psychologist leant forward to see, holding out his hand for a specimen. I'm hanged to send quarter tune, said the journalist. How shall we get home? Plenty o' cabs at the station, said the psychologist. It's a curious thing, said the medical man, but I certainly don't know the natural order of these flowers. May I have them? Fatima Traveler he's adapted. Then suddenly certainly not. Wherever the out really jet them said medicalman. The time traveler put his hand to his head. He spoke like one who was trying to keep hold of an idea that eluded him. They were to tin Tommy Pocket Bewina a night track, held into time. He stared round the room. I'm damned if it isn't all going. This room and you and the atmosphere of every day is too much for my memory. Did I ever make a time machine, or a model of a time machine? Or is it all only a dream? They say life is a dream, a precious poor dream at times. Beauty can't stand another top one tifit. It's madness. And where did the dream come from? I must look at the machine. If there is one. He caught up the lamp swiftly, and carried it, flaring grand, through the door into the corridor. We followed him. There in the flickering light of the lamp was the machine sure enough, squat, ugly, and askew, a thing of brass, BB, swanny ivory and translucent glimmering quartz. Solid too. The touch, for I put out my hand and felt the roll of it, and with brown spots and smears upon the ivory, and bit soft grass and moss upon the lower parts, and one rail bent awry. The time traveler put the lamp down on the bench and her shone along the damaged rail. It's all right, no, he said. The story I told you was true. I'm sorry to have brought you out the Rhine. Take hold. Hatcher cupped the lamp and, in an absolute silence, we returned to the smoking room. He came into the hall with us and helped the editor on with his coat. The medical man looked into his face and, with a certain hesitation, told him he was suffering from overwork, at which he laughed hugely. I remember him standing in the open doorway, bawling good night. I shared a cab with the editor. He thought the tale a got delight for my Untasha was unable to cogtoken. Cluchen. The story was so fantastic and increasable to telling secretably and solber. I lay away most of the night thinking about it. I determined to go next day and see Fatima Traveler again. I was told he was in the laboratory, and being on easy terms in the house, I went up to him. The laboratory however was empty. I staggered Nutai at the time machine and put out my hand and touched the lever. At that squat substantial-looking mass swayed like a booth shaken by the wind. Its instability startled me extremely, and a hated eerie reminiscence of that childish days when I used to be forbidden to meddle. I came back through the corridor. The time traveler met me in the smoking room. He was coming from the house. Had a small camera on. Dare one arm and a knapsack under the other. He laughed when he saw me and gave me an elbow to shake. I am frightfully busy, said he, with that thing in there. But is it not some hoax? I said. Do you really travel through time? Really and truly I do. And he looked frankly into my eyes. Had hesitated. Has I ever read about the room? I only want Alfangower here. It go with you camp and it's awfully good if I do. There's some magazine sure. I find well stopped at lunch. You'll prove I out this time a travelin' gutted the hilt, specimen and all. If you'll forgive my leaving you now. I consented, hardly comprehending then the full import of his words, and he nodded and went on down the corridor. I heard the door of the laboratory slam, seated myself in a chair, and took up a daily paper. What was he going to do for lunchtime? Then suddenly I was reminded by an advertisement that I had promised to meet Richardson, the publisher at. I looked at my watch and saw that I could barely save that engagement. I got up and went down the passage to tell the time traveler. As I took hold of the hand, the figure heard an exclamation, oddly truncated at the end, and a click and a thud. A gust of air whirled round me as I opened the door, and from within came the sound of broken glass falling on the floor. The time traveler was not there. I seemed to see a ghostly, indistinct figure sitting in the whirling mass of black and brass. For a moment a figure so transparent that the bench behind with its soft drawings was absolutized. Distinct but this phantasm vanished as bid my ease. The time machine had gone. Save for a subsiding stir of dust, the further end of the laboratory was empty. The pane of the skylight had, apparently, just been blown in. I felt an unreasonable amazement. I knew that something strange had happened and for the moment could not distinguish what the strange thing might be. As I stood staring, the door into the garden opened, and the man's ear, Vang appeared. Look data shot third Nabius Begatokum. Has Mr. gone out that way? Said I. No, sir. No one has come out this way. I was expecting to find him here. At that I understood, At the risk of disappointing Rich, hard son, I stayed on, waiting for the time traveler, waiting for the second, perhaps still stranger story, and the spec immense and photographs would bring with them. Beauty am beginning now to fear that I must wait a lifetime. The time traveler vanished 3 hours ago. And as everybody knows now, he has never returned.